Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for watching the Adult Education TABE program. I would like to introduce Dr. Terry Dunn. Dr. Dunn is the Southern Region Director of Adult Education for Alabama Community College System, who will be presenting today's training. Dr. Dunn?
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you everyone for being here and for the Department of Workforce for having me. So as Kevin mentioned, we're going to talk about the new eligibility guidelines for ETPL approved courses, and this is for those ITA dollars. The Department of Workforce and the Alabama Community College System Adult Education team got together recently to talk about really making sure that we can update a process to help ensure that there's workforce alignment when it comes to TABE scores and WORKKEYS scores and how we're testing our students to qualify them for these high quality training programs on the ETPL training lists. We want to make sure that there's a responsible investment of the resources that you all are able to allocate to these training programs. And we want to certainly increase consistency and the employment outcomes. We want to make sure that those who qualify for the training dollars and make sure that they are able to sustain and to stay in the course and be successful in the training program so that they can get the job that they're looking for. So our focus remains helping students enter careers that provide family-sustaining wages. So what we did was we crosswalked all 422 courses that are on the eligible training provider list to the minimum WORKKEYS employment scores using the ONET code that is associated with the particular occupation, the particular training course and the occupation that it should lead to. Correlated the WORKKEYS scores to TABE scores, researched the NRS levels and scores needed to be successful in ACCS training programs. And not really just, we realize that not all the training programs are provided through an Alabama community college system, but through research, we understand that this is the level that we can expect that the learners to be able to be successful in the training programs that they register for. So based on that, we assign minimum scores needed for the courses and determine 3 qualification categories. So a student's either going to qualify, they're going to qualify with co-enrollment in adult education, or they do not currently qualify. And you can see on the screen here, you can see some of the conversions that were used. So looking at the WORKKEYS levels, the WORKKEYS scores, and how that correlates to NRS levels. You can look at the TABE scores and the corresponding NRS levels there. You can also notice, I'm sure, that the scores that we are recommending would also fit in the range of a TABE level M or a TABE level D test. But all of this corresponds to the NRS level 4, which would generally be thought of as grades 6 through 8. So those are the minimum scores. So based on those scores, the recommendation is that a student who qualifies for training would fall in this green section here. So green, if you just think of it like a stoplight, green means go, yellow is like proceed with caution, and red would mean that you stop, you're not currently qualified. So for the green level, that would be a student who scores a 536 in reading or a 537 in math. And you can see how that corresponds or correlates to the WORKKEYS scores as well. So those students would qualify for training, and that's it. There's no additional co-enrollment or anything needed for those students. It's always available, but not necessary and not particularly recommended. So a student who scores within the range of 442 to 535 in reading would be conditionally qualified. So that means that they could still qualify for the training, but they would need to co-enroll in adult education until they were scoring high enough to reach that unconditional status or that unconditional eligibility level. And for math, the 449 to 536. Now, a student who scores below those levels would then be deemed not qualified currently for training. They can be referred to an adult education class to get their scores up if that's something they want to do. And we would, of course, ask them to do that if they would like to. And then once their scores were to get to the yellow or to the green level, they could then enroll in those training courses. Now, I do want to make a point to make everyone aware that adult education programs will be testing students in reading and math using the TABE, the Test of Adult Basic Education test. We will not be using the WORKKEYS, but under special circumstances, it could be that the student has taken a WORKKEYS test or will be administered a WORKKEYS test, but the common practice through adult education will be the TABE test. And you can see here to the right, we have worked together with our workforce partners to put together an ITA participant flow. So what happens when the student or the client walks into the Career Center, and how we would progress them to the handoff to adult education for that testing, and then the referral back to the Career Center, or the scores back to the Career Center. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. So we have an ITA eligibility verification form, and when the student is to the point where they need to be referred for testing, the Career Center would complete the top part of the form. And so this is just the information about the Career Center and the student and the training program that they would like to be enrolled in, and the date that they're referred to adult education for testing. And then the next section is to be completed by the adult education teacher or whomever is giving that TABE test. So the student would be assessed, and they would check which test they were administered, and would provide the information regarding the score and the date the student was tested. And at the bottom, it would clearly, they would clearly check whether or not the student qualifies for training, or if they are conditionally qualified, or if they do not currently qualify. And we're asking that the adult education programs provide this information back to the Career Center within 24 hours of testing. So of course, if that occurs on a Friday, it would be Monday, but generally the following day, at least, the Career Center would be notified regarding those scores and the eligibility of that client. Now, we did have some questions and added some information to this, because not everybody's going to be in the same level when they're tested. They're not going to have all greens necessarily, or all yellows. So what happens if there's a mixture? What if they have all green, or if they have a green plus a yellow? And this is also included with this verification form. That means if they have a yellow and a green, they qualify for training, and co-enrollment is not required. So a score within the green section in both subjects, or one score in the green and one score in the yellow section, would mean that the student qualifies for the training. Co-enrollment in adult education is not required. If a student scores a yellow, or a yellow plus a red, they are conditionally qualified for training, and co-enrollment is required. So a score within the yellow section in both subjects, or one score in the yellow and one score in the red, means that the student qualifies for training, but co-enrollment in adult education is required. And basically, any score combination that includes a score in the red section is going to require co-enrollment in adult education. So if it's green plus red or yellow plus red, then they're conditionally qualified, and they need to co-enroll, because we want to make sure that they have the supports that they need to be successful in the training. We want them to persist. We want them to be able to complete the training. And again, if the student scores completely in the red in both subjects, then they are not currently qualified. And what we'll do is, work with them to get their score up if they decide to do that. And again, we'll have the scores back to the Career Centers within 24 hours after testing. And something else that we want to make sure is that we as adult educators, our staff, are providing status reports on these students as well. So if a student has been co-enrolled in adult education, you need to know that they are coming to classes, that they are co-enrolled, in fact, and then we can be sure to provide feedback by the 5th of each month regarding their continuation in adult education courses. So it could be that they come in and they're conditionally qualified, and then after a particular time frame, they're reassessed, and they're in the green section now, and they don't have to be co-enrolled any further. They're successful in the courses. They're not having any problems, but we will provide those supports as long as they're needed. So there's 2 new documents that we'll be providing to everyone. So the first one is the ITA participant flow, and that's the one that's on the screen here. And as mentioned, it kind of goes through the start to finish. When the student walks into the Career Center, what do they have to do before they're handed off for testing? And then it gives, the information about what the adult education staff person's going to do when they receive the student, and how they're going to provide those test scores back to the Career Center. The second document is the one that I showed previously, and that's the ITA eligibility verification form, where we provide the information regarding those test scores and the eligibility status. And as Kevin mentioned, this goes into effect July 1. So we are sharing this information with all of you. We've shared this with some of the adult education staff during our statewide conference last week, but we will be doing the same type of training with them in the next couple of days so that they have this information as well. And that's really all I have. And so, Kevin, if it's okay, then maybe we can open it up for questions now.